My name is Waldemar Borrero, representing Melina Borrero. She's at home with her 4 kids. I want to sincerely thank all 4 of the candidates who are running for Nassau County Court Judge in the August 18th primary election for taking the time to join us this evening. Thank you very much. Tonight's candidates forum for Group 1 Nassau County Judge is sponsored by the Racial Equality Coalition, known as REC, and Bridging the Gap. These 2 groups are working together to create a community-wide discussion on racial equality and racial justice issues. The Racial Equality Coalition is a newly formed group created by young adults after the death of George Floyd, but is now a collection of people of all ages from diverse backgrounds seeking to accelerate racial respect, equal opportunity, and fairness in Nassau County and beyond. As part of the REC community outreach, we are very happy to be here to sponsoring this important event. Our co-sponsor, Bridging the Gap, has been around for about 6 years. It is an ecumenical and secular group that fosters and promotes conversation on racial relations in Nassau County and beyond. Neither REC nor Bridging the Gap endorses candidates. However, we are conducting this forum so the citizens of Fernandina Beach and Nassau County are provided with the opportunity to meet and evaluate each candidate running for Group 1 Judge in the County Court. Our forum tonight is being recorded. It is also being simultaneously live streamed on Fernandina Beach City website and on Comcast 264, the Fernandina Beach Public Education Station. We want to warmly thank the City of Fernandina Beach and the City Clerk for their help and support in the arrangement of this forum. We also welcome all of our audience members and are happy that you've chosen to join us. This isn't exact science, but we hope to keep our forum to about 1 hour and 15 minutes. Our format tonight includes unannounced questions presented to the candidates by 3 REC moderators, myself, Waldemar Borrero, Holly Adkins, and the Reverend Anthony Daniels. Our timekeeper is Connor Fasel.
My name is Holly. Thank you all for being here. We invite each of you to take up to 2 minutes to introduce yourselves and tell us why you decided to run for County Court Judge. We'll first start with Miss Jenny Higginbotham Barrett. Miss Barrett, please introduce yourself and tell us why you're running for the position of County Court Judge in Group 1.
Thank you, Holly.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, my name is Jenny Higginbotham Barrett, and I'm 43 years old. I was born and raised in Callahan. Educated in Callahan, so I've spent my entire life in Nassau County. I graduated from West Nassau and then attended law school at Florida State University. After graduating from Florida State, I was a public defender for almost 3 years. Shortly after that, I moved back to Callahan, worked for a small practitioner's office, and now currently for the last 16 years have been working for a Fortune 500 company. I have a family, my husband Scott of 9 years. I have 2 children, Max and Isabella, 7 and 6. We all live in Nassau and Callahan, and they attend Callahan Elementary School. I am in various organizations, including ABWA, as well as Elder Source. I sit on the board of both of those organizations. And I also coach basketball for Upwards for my kids. Why do I want to be Nassau County Judge? Because I think I have a lot to offer to the community. I was born here. I know the county. I have been out in corporate America for the last 16 years, so I know what's happening across the country. I want to bring those skills to the county and try to bring a fresh perspective to our government as well as the bench. Since I am 43 years old, I have years in me that I can continue to invest in our community and serve citizens of Nassau County for years to come.
Okay, thank you very much. Miss Barrett, Miss Jan Carver, please introduce yourself and respond to why you are running for judge.
I'm Jan Carver, and I have lived here for over 30 years. I am the first and the only Nassau County magistrate, and as such, I've presided over 5 of our courts here over the last 3 years. And I am also a nurse practitioner and have been involved with mental health issues and substance abuse issues for years, which is one of our major problems that come before the court. I'm also past president of the Nassau County Council on Aging and have been involved with the Council on Aging for years, and I still am involved. I'm also have been a teen court coach, as well as a substitute judge in teen court, which is a voluntary program. And I've also been involved with Barnabas Medical Center as a volunteer nurse practitioner to take care of people that are uninsured. So having had the experiences that I've had and seeing that the major issues coming before the court are mental health issues and substance abuse issues, I have the background to bring to the court, as well as the experience having been a magistrate to know how the court operates. I also was the court administrator for the last year, and so I know what goes on behind the curtain too, which is helpful. And so that's why I would like to be the next candidate.
Thank you, Ms. Carver. Mr. John Cascone, please introduce yourself and tell us why you have chosen to run.
Thank you. I'm John Joseph Cascone. I've been practicing in Nassau County for 31 years. I'm board certified in criminal trial and have been for 27 years. My entire practice is focused on North Florida, mostly Nassau County. I haven't been all over the world. I haven't been anywhere else. I haven't been something other than a criminal defense lawyer for the last 31 years in this community. I've represented everybody in this community, from janitors to judges, from people with untold wealth to no money at all. I've represented the people of Nassau County in the courts of Nassau County. I've spent my career here, and the reason I think I am the candidate that should be chosen as judge is I'm giving back at the end of my career to the community that gave me my career. I have the most to offer based on my experience, my professional attainments, and the desire to give to the community. I have participated in all manner of charitable organizations along with Ms. Carver and Mr. Poole. I've been involved in teen court in the past, been involved in Habitat for Humanity. I was on the original board that eventually became Starting Point, providing mental health and substance abuse assistance here in the county. I served on Big Brothers Big Sisters. I've done just about everything in the county, nowhere else. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cascone. Now we have Mr. Harrison Poole. Mr. Poole, please introduce yourself and tell us what promoted your decision to run for judge.
Good evening, and I'm Harrison Wesley Poole, and I'm from here. This is home. It always has been. My wife, Deborah, and I are raising our 3 boys here in Fernandina, and I'm a graduate from Fernandina Beach High. Upon coming out of law school at Florida State, I worked for a couple of years as a state prosecutor, and then came back home again to Fernandina. And over the last 11 years, I've been a general practitioner, and so I've handled virtually all the types of cases that go before county court. It isn't just criminal courts, although that's a big part of its caseload, but also small claims, civil court. The jurisdiction for the civil court just doubled to $30,000, with another increase to $50,000 coming for civil cases in 2022. So I'm one of the only candidates that I know of that's handled all of those types of cases: the credit card cases, the evictions cases, the small claims, the traffic, the criminal side of it. Why I want to do this is, like I said, this is home, and service to the community has always been really important to me. Since coming back, I served for approximately 9 years on the board for the Nassau County Volunteer Center. I'm on the board for the Jacksonville Area Legal Aid, and also on the board for the Trinity Love Hoblet Foundation. Started filling in, volunteering with teen court about 10 years ago, and 2 years ago took over full-time responsibility as the volunteer teen court judge. So working with children is very important with me, and in that diversionary role and trying to avoid that. So I have that background of experience, and to me, this is the next step in service to the community. It's home, it's really important to me, and I want to make sure that our laws are upheld and enforced in a fair and impartial fashion, and that every single person that walks through that courthouse doors is treated with respect and dignity.
Thank you, Mr. Poole. Now we have Anthony.
Thank you, candidate, and welcome. As you know, we are representatives of Racial Equality Coalition and Bridging the Gap. While many Americans might like to think racism no longer exists in our communities or in our lives, evidence, experience suggests otherwise. We as members of REC want to encourage and promote a much needed conversation about the role of criminal justice system and the effect of race on the way justice is dispensed. Part of our concern comes from the December 2016 article that Sarasota Herald Tribune published called Bias on the Bench and Florida's Broken Sentencing System. The article states, while the intention of the judicial system is fairness, it often fails to account for prejudice. The article analyzes statewide sentencing data, and the research showed Nassau County had one of the widest racial discrepancies in the whole state when it comes to drug crimes and sentencing. The Herald Tribune's research found Nassau County judges frequently give more than double the jail sentence to blacks in comparison to white felons for drug charges. Issues around policing and the relationship between law enforcement and African American males in particular have long been the concern of the local black community. In fact, in 2014, members of the Nassau County black community started an online petition that drew more than 630 signatures. This petition called on Judge Foster to step down over what they perceived as a bias against minorities, particularly in drug cases. With that as our background, we'll start tonight's questions in alphabetical order, beginning to the left with Ms. Jenny Higginbotham Barrett. We will then go down the line so each of you can answer. We have chosen 4 questions to ask each of the candidates. You will each have 2 minutes for your answers. If you need the question reread, please ask. Mr. Connor is our timekeeper. He will let you know when you have 30 seconds left and also when to stop. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have the first question. Ms. Barrett, what lifetime experiences were central to your decision to run for Group 1 County Court Judge?
Thank you. I think my whole life experience growing up in a small town, often forgotten in this county, we've always had to have a loud voice. So growing up, we had very little resources in the west side of the community, and we had to learn how to be resourceful. And plus my mother was a public school teacher, and we saw a lot of poverty, a lot of people that were left behind. So I was always part of her service growing up. So as growing up, we were always taught to serve the community. That was first and foremost. Whether we do that through our peers, through our church, however. After I graduated and went to law school, that same year was 9/11. So that even inspired me more, gave me great passion. But in college and law school, growing up in a small town, that put me in a larger community. And growing up in a small community, I learned how to stand up for what was right and to be confident in my convictions and also to speak with confidence. And so when I went into these larger communities, it was in law school and college, it was very scary. But I took that same experience that I learned from working in my community, serving, and also being confident in my convictions to those schools. I excelled. And so, okay, let me wrap it up. So anyway, after that, when I was given a job at the public defender's office, I saw it firsthand through my clients that there was still a need, and I still give back to the community where I can. And as the county court judge, I think I would bring all those life experiences of being left out and having little resources to the bench, and to make sure that I would rule with fairness and hear everyone's case that came before me.
Thank you, Ms. Barrett. Ms. Carver, what lifetime experiences were central to your decision to run for Group 1 County Court Judge?
Well, certainly my experience as a magistrate brought together my expertise as a nurse practitioner and as a lawyer, because the major issues we're seeing are substance abuse issues or drug-related issues and mental health issues. So all of the people that come before the court, they don't come because they're having a good time, unless maybe it's an adoption. So to know the resources in the community and what's available to help the people. I mean, they have to be held accountable, but we need to hook them up with the resources that are available to help them. So I'm very familiar with the resources in the community, and certainly as a nurse practitioner, I have taken care of people for years. And I think I bring all of that to the bench, and there's no better job in the world as far as I'm concerned. I mean, people are interesting, cases are interesting because of the people that are involved. I find it very rewarding, and I think I bring a lot to the table as far as being able to hold people accountable, but also help them.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Mr. Cascone, what lifetime experiences were central to your decision to run for Group 1 County Court Judge?
First, I was raised in a family that was committed to service to their community. My father founded what has become ViStar Credit Union in 1952 and served on that until his 90s on their board without ever earning a dime. My mother volunteered at St. Vincent's Hospital for my entire life until she was no longer physically able to. They instilled that requirement in us of giving to the community. When I came here in July of '89, I was put in front of Judge Robert Williams as the county court judge, and for whatever reason, he took me under his wing and made me serve on boards. He found boards that needed help and put me on them. And from him, I learned the importance of a county court judge in a small county. And it's more than a birthright or knowing about certain substances or mental health issues. It's a cross-section of everything. And for 31 years, I've practiced here. I know the people of this county. I've represented many people. I've sat in many kitchens and on many front porches talking to families that were in need of help. And the role of a judge can alter a bad circumstance for many people and make it a more positive future. And that's what I see that I have to offer.
Thank you. Mr. Poole, again, what lifetime experiences were central to your decision to run for Group 1 County Court Judge?
Well, in addition to my legal background and the experiences as a prosecutor, as a defense attorney, and as a civil practitioner, I've got the critical, essential elements of the job, that type of experience. But as far as life experiences, I'd say one of the things that was most impactful to me, the impact the justice system can have on individuals, was doing court-appointed conflict work and representing defendants that were indigent, that there was a conflict where the PD's office couldn't represent them. I can remember one circumstance where I worked very hard. It was a drug case. It was before, coincidentally, Judge Foster, and we negotiated a sentence. I didn't think there was anything particularly remarkable about the case until after the defendant was sentenced and his mother called me. And she said, my son told me that you're his attorney, and this is the first time he felt like he had an attorney that cared about him. And to me, that is a travesty, that so many people get pushed through our system and they're just going through the motions, that they're not getting that type of attention. And I took an oath when I joined the Florida Bar, and that oath requires me to act diligently and zealously for every client, whether they're retained privately or whether it's court appointed or however, pro bono cases. And I took a vow not to treat those any differently. And so to get that feedback, to me, it was moving, because it opened my eyes to just how much of a disparity there is and how oftentimes people slip through the cracks and feel like they're just a number in the game. And so that life experience, in addition to everything else in my life and being a part of the community and growing up here and the service to the community, has pushed me to continue that service for Nassau County.
Thank you very much.
I have the second question, and we'll start with Ms. Jan Carver. Again, you will have 2 minutes for your answer. Ms. Carver, assuming you are elected as a county court judge, do you believe it is necessary to understand the civil rights struggle of the past, and why?
I do. I think it's important because it's a social issue in our country, and right now it's front and center. And of course it was front and center in the past, but it's because of the division in the country right now, it is a huge issue. So I think all social issues impact the community. So once they've impacted the community, they're going to come before the court. And so that's why I think it's important to have that history and to learn from the history, and also to see what solutions we might come to. So yes, I do. I think it's very important.
Thank you, Ms. Carver. All right, Mr. Cascone, assuming you are elected as a county court judge, do you believe it is necessary to understand the civil rights struggle of the past, and why?
Not only is it necessary, it's mandatory. This is not something that's new, what's going on in the nation today. This has been going on for years. Many people have been making these same complaints for years and years. As I said earlier, I practiced in Houston for 10 years, or I lived in Houston for 10 years, practiced there after law school, and then came back to Jacksonville and then Fernandina. And 3 absolutely different communities, but 3 communities that all understood the problems that they had had in the past and were looking for solutions, and their voices went unanswered. It is culminated today because of the modern technology we have, with everybody being a videographer and catching these things on video and people seeing them. The civil rights struggle is real. It's been real. I decided I wanted to be a lawyer in 1964 on the way to church when I heard a man discussing the civil rights legislation, and he kept saying the Barfields, and I asked my father who the Barfields were. And he explained to me that he was talking about the lawyers, and the lawyers were pushing for equality. That's when I decided I wanted to be a lawyer. And it's absolutely mandatory that the judge do that the lawyers do that the law enforcement do that.
Thank you, Mr. Cascone. And now Mr. Poole. Assuming you are elected as a county court judge, do you believe it is necessary to understand the civil rights movement or civil rights struggle of the past, and why?
Absolutely, and not just if elected. No, I think as citizens today, we should absolutely be concerning ourselves with that. We talked about that article from Sarasota Tribune. One of the things I found most alarming about, I don't want to say most alarming, one of the alarming things and aspects of judge that I found is the new judges are only required to take 90 minutes within the first 12 months of joining the bench of a training as far as racial bias, and then another 8 hours within 3 years about diversity. And I think that's a travesty. I mean, I think when we talk about the hallmarks of our criminal justice system, there has to be faith that everyone's going to get a fair shake there. And obviously, for a lot of reasons, that confidence has been shook. And so, to me, absolutely, you have to understand that history. You have to understand those struggles and that adversity if you're going to do your job with any credibility.
Thank you, Mr. Poole. Would you like me to reread the question, Ms. Barry?
Please.
Assuming you are elected as a county court judge, do you believe it is necessary to understand the civil rights struggle of the past and why?
Thank you. Like Harrison said, I think it's important to understand the civil rights history, not only as the county court judge, but as a citizen of Nassau County and the United States. And I think that to achieve racial equity, I think the first thing you have to do is to know your history, to know how you got there. And I think by discussing the issues amongst the community as well as the leaders, then you can start making change. But until you know the history, you don't know what needs to be changed and where to go from there. So part of that, learning the civil rights history, is to talk to people, communicate, see where they've been and what's happened and where do they think we can make change. That's the only way you're going to ever make change in the community. And as county court judge, I mean, that's the most important part of the judicial system, is to make sure that the judge, the face of the judicial system, is fair and will impose fair sentences. And I think another thing in that article, and I have read that article in the past, and it talked about diversity of the bench. And I think diversity of the bench is very important to get to more racial equity within the judicial system.
Thank you, Ms. Barrett. And now we have Reverend Anthony again.
I have the third question, and we'll start with Mr. Cascone. However, by way of background, Judge Falgren, the juvenile court justice of Nassau County, has reached out to local clergy to assist him in mentoring defendants in a restorative justice format. He has also committed himself to public speaking engagements when invited. He has a hands-on approach engaging with the local African American community. My question is in two parts. One, do you believe this type of engagement is important in the climate of Black Lives Matter and the killing of George Floyd? Two, if you are elected, how will you spend your professional and personal time to address racism in Nassau County? Mr. Cascone.
Yes, sir.
When you're ready, please give us your answer.
Reverend, first, I have to say that I don't know that anything would change about my personal time, because I've been involved in the community on all levels in the community, and I believe that my reputation across every ethnic group in this community is well accepted. I have friends across the board. I have been involved in things over the years. I don't believe it will change. I think maybe it will have a higher profile because I would be the county court judge and people would pay more attention. Professionally, I think as a judge that you can lead by being involved in things such as going to luncheons, going to organizational meetings, and speaking out and trying to get the focus on the right areas. As I said in my earlier answer, the issue of racism in the courts has been a real problem forever. And it has across the board. But because of these recent events, it has become more of a nationally accepted or nationally acknowledged condition that needs to be addressed. I'm afraid that the way things are going is it's going to be addressed now and it'll just slowly slide back into the background again because it has so many times in the past. It needs to be an active, effective membership across the board, from the courts to the people in the courts to the police to the community as a whole, whether it be pastors or civic organizations. And everybody needs to be involved, and I would be.
Thank you. Mr. Poole, if you would, please give us your answer. You need the question.
Would you
again?
repeat? Yes, because it's a two-part.
Two parts.
Right.
The first question is, do you believe this type of engagement is important in this climate of Black Lives Matter and the killing of George Floyd?
Oh, absolutely. And this type of engagement is not only important, but it's crucial. One of the things that I've done and I'm proud of professionally is providing legal services to several local nonprofits. One of them is the Elm Street Sportsmen Association. I've represented them in an entirely pro bono to get them set up, to get them legally organized, and they have done amazing work in our community, and I'm really proud to have played just a teeny tiny role in that. So I think that type of engagement in the community is something that's already been important to me, and I would follow in the footsteps or follow the directions of Judge Falgren in engaging those community leaders and taking that opportunity. And any time that I can learn something from the community and take that would be important and crucial. And that kind of leads into the next one in addressing racism in my professional and personal life. The first thing that you have to do is nobody is going to readily admit that they're a racist or that they're biased. But I think what's important is always reflect on, you have different life experiences. You don't know what someone else has experienced or what their families or generations have experienced. And you've got to keep that open mind. And you've always got to be receptive and sensitive to those. And anytime that you can learn and grow as a person, it's going to benefit you, but it's also going to benefit you in your professional life, your personal life, and so on and so forth. So to sum up, I would continue that type of community engagement, both professionally and personally.
Thank you, Mr. Poole. Ms. Barrett?
Perfect. Thank you. Number one, that's part of my platform. I think the role of a county judge doesn't only sit on the bench and rule, but is out in the community and serving as a role model and renewing the fairness and confidence of the judicial system within the community. You mentioned Judge Falgren at the community events. I've actually been there to see Judge Falgren at those community events. I'm a member of the Patricia V. Williams Concerned Citizens of Nassau County. It's on the west side. And he attended one of those functions, and I was very pleased to see him there as a young attorney and just as a person on the west side of the community. And so I could tell how much that meant for the citizens that he was there. He cared about what they said. He listened. I watched him listen to the people and see what they had to say. He was very, very patient, and I appreciated that. I watched that. And so that meant a lot to me, just seeing that, and I'm sure it meant even more so to the citizens that he was talking to. So absolutely, Reverend Daniels, the role of the county judge is to listen to the community, find out what the problems are. And one of those problems is racial inequality, and should see what we can do from the judicial system to bridge that gap. Talk to the community leaders, see what we can do as a community. And like John said, it's really volatile right now, obviously, and whether it's going to calm down, and we still have to keep that at the forefront of our attention. Conversations like this should always be going on. We work together as a community to reduce the inequality that's seen in the judicial system and the community.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ms. Carlin?
I hate to ask you to repeat it. but-
Absolutely. No worries, no worries.
Can I say something?
No.
Do you believe this type of engagement is important in this climate of Black Lives Matter and the killing of George Floyd, as in being personal and professional in your? And then the second question is, if you're elected, how will you spend your professional and personal time to address racism in Nassau County?
Okay, well, the first question, first I want to make a comment, and
Okay.
because I have worked with Judge Falgren on these issues, and I presided over mental health court, but also Marchman Court, which is substance abuse. It's a civil court, but he and I worked together because we had some of our people that were participating in his courts were also in these other courts. So I'm well aware of the hands-on approach, and I'm all for it. As far as engagement, we should have been engaged in this anyway. It's dreadful what has happened with Mr. Floyd, and also the fact that Black Lives Matter is now much more in the forefront. But this is not a new issue. I mean, so it's an issue that I think we should all be engaged in anyway. So now it's more in the forefront, so yes, we should be engaged in it. As far as what I would do professionally, one of the things I would do is investigate the issue and find out from the perspective of, these statistics I would like to see, because the statistics that are being talked about in the article that in the Herald Tribune, they're talking about issues from the bench. Well, as far as diversity on the bench, Henry Adams was a circuit court judge here in the early, and he's a black man, and he went on to be a federal judge. Then Brian Davis was here for several years, and he's a black judge. And now Lester Bass is here as a circuit judge, and he's also a black judge. So I would certainly investigate the issue. And as far as personally, I do think I would agree with everybody else that's already said that we need to listen to the community and listen to see what people are saying and where we go from here, and try to find solutions to the problem, not just talk about what the problem is, but come up with some solutions.
Thank you.
For the last question number 4, we will start with Mr. Harrison Poole. This is a rather long question, so I'll read it to each one of you. Mr. Poole, for crimes with standard sentencing guidelines, where the guidelines control the minimum sentence, but not the maximum sentence, what would you do to make sure your own decision-making is not influenced by the type of bias as described in the previously mentioned 2014 Herald Tribune article, which many believe has continued to impact sentencing in Florida even into this new century?
Well, one of the things with the county court position is there are very, very few of those mandatory minimum sentences. The vast majority of those, and those that were studied in that article, were minimum mandatory sentences that had to do with drug offenses. We have some in county court, but not as many, so it's not something that would be as prevalent. But I think one of the things is the judge always has to do, and they've got to be conscious of what is coming into their mind. They don't think, well, I'm not a racist or I'm not biased, so I'm just going to continue doing my business. And you've got to make sure you're always aware of it, and make sure and take that conscious effort to treat everyone equally and fairly. The old adage is that justice is blind. And if we have any evidence from that article or from what we've observed from our own eyes that isn't true. But I would do my absolute best to strive that that's the case, and that every person that walks through that courthouse door they're going to be treated with dignity and respect, and they're going to get a fair shake. And so I think the biggest thing to do in that type of circumstance is to be active in thinking about those issues, so that you don't allow them to creep in your mind, and that you're making that conscious effort in every single case to treat everyone the same.
Thank you, Mr. Poole. Ms. Barrett? For crimes with the standard sentence guidelines, where the guidelines control the minimum sentence but not the maximum sentence, what would you do to make sure your own decision-making is not influenced by the type of bias as described in the previously mentioned 2014 Herald Tribune article, which many believe has continued to impact sentencing in Florida even into this new century?
Thank you. What would I do to make sure my own bias would not be taken into account for the sentencing? I think, first of all, my faith, I would pray about it and make sure that I've cleared my head. But secondly, accountability and making sure that when you are listening to all the facts, that you rule with fairness and just keep yourself accountable. I truly believe anybody can say anything they want to at this forum. I think that what you have to do when you're looking for a candidate that's going to be fair and as unbiased as possible is to talk to the community about the people that we're voting in. So what would I do? I would hold myself accountable. I would be true to myself, and I'd be true and treat the defendant and all the parties in front of me fairly as I'd want to be treated, and I'd do the best I can. And if other people said I was not being fair, I'd want to hear about that, and I would want to be held accountable.
Thank you, Ms. Barrett. Ms. Carver? For crimes with standard sentencing guidelines, where the guidelines control the minimum sentence but not the maximum sentence, what would you do to make sure your own decision-making is not influenced by the type of bias as described in the previously mentioned 2014 Herald Tribune article, which many people believe has continued to impact sentencing in Florida even into this new century?
Well, I also want to reiterate what Harrison said, that most of the cases in county court are not going to be the same kind of cases. But the other thing that is mentioned in the article, but there are no statistics about it, is that most of the time the defense, whether it's the public defender or a private attorney, and the prosecution come to an agreement, and that plea agreement is presented to the court. So most of the time, the judge is going to review it, but if the defendant or the person involved is agreeing to this sentence, then the court is not generally going to overrule that unless not accept it, unless there's a good reason to do that, because they're looking at it saying the defendants agreed to this. But what was never looked at in that article was who were the prosecutors and who were the defense attorneys, and were they the same people that looked at all the different cases that they brought up in that article to see if there's a problem there. So as far as what I would do, I think we need some investigation to see, I don't know if we can have statistics that show if someone is black, what was the sentence in this case? If someone was white, what was the sentence in this case? So that we can see and compare and make sure that the sentences are equitable. So I think there's got to be some method of knowing, because I don't think any of the judges I've worked with and any of the people here, I don't think anybody is outrightly thinks that they're racist. So, we have inherent biases, but to come up with what we would do about them, I think is to be cognizant of the issue, and then to come up, if you can, with a system of trying to make sure that those plea bargains are reasonable.
Thank you, Ms. Carver.
I'm okay without the question.
Thank you.
First of all, I want to say, other than my inherent prejudices against people from Connecticut and Callahan, I'm okay. One of the things I disagree with that Mr. Poole and Ms. Barrett both said is that, and Ms. Carver, that these are, mostly things in felony court. Well, that's not true. There are many minimum mandatories in county court. And what everybody thinks of when you say sentencing is time in jail. Well, a sentence in county court is more than that. It's the fines that are imposed. And the legislature has created this level of fine structure that is punitive to people that are living on the edge. And when you impose a $350 fine on somebody that makes $900 a month, You're taking food off the table. You're taking rent payments off the table. You're going to make them homeless. They're going to lose a car. They're going to lose a job. And that's what's wrong. And everybody needs to look at that. The bias goes beyond putting people in jail. It's the overall ramifications. And it needs to be looked at and changed. I have talked for years with other lawyers about why judges have to follow standards that are set by the legislature on setting fines for people. Why aren't the judges making those decisions? If you make $100,000 a year and she makes $10,000 a year, why are the fines the same? It's not equally punitive. It's inherently prejudiced. And it doesn't necessarily depend on race, ethnicity, or where you're from. It's equality does not mean everybody is treated the same. Equality means they're treated fairly. And that's what we have lost in the criminal justice system, and especially the county court level, because it sees the most people. And that's one of the things that I think has to be addressed. And that's why I'm the best person to do this, because nobody else thinks about these things. I represent real people. I don't represent corporations or groups of people.
Thank you,
or
Judge.
civil companies.
Thank you, Gascon. Appreciate that.
Can I just say something? I did not say that about the sentencing, but is that a legislature issue or a county court issue that addresses the fines?
Can you put on your
I'm
mask?
sorry.
That's okay.
That would be my question.
All right, we've come to the end of our candidates forum and would like each of you to take up to 3 minutes this time to give us your closing statement regarding why you believe you are the best candidate to be elected as Group 1 County Judge. This time we'll start with candidate Jenny Higginbotham Barrett. Ms. Barrett, why do you think you are the best candidate?
Thank you, Holly. Unlike some people in this forum, I don't just represent corporations. I represent consumers, people that own homes, and people that lose their life savings through fraudsters across the country. I've represented people in Nassau County. I've represented people all over. And the reason why I do that is because everybody deserves a chance to be represented, whether they are a billionaire or have zero money. And I started my career representing people with no money. I was 25 years old, and I saw it firsthand how the judicial system is unfair to people without money, and also based on where they came from. So I feel like I have the most diverse legal background in trial and litigation because I have represented truly all walks of life, whether that's through public service, government, private service, or corporate service. I've been able to counsel very unsophisticated people with no education and executives and corporations with all the money in the world. And I think that is what a true judge would do. It doesn't matter if you have all the money in the world or no money in the world. You're able to listen to what is presented to you, manage the courtroom, and decide and apply the law and decide upon, based on fairness and the law. So qualification-wise, I feel that I have a lot to offer. Secondly, I am from this county. I know this county. I grew up on the west side. My first job was in Fernandina Beach. So I've been here my entire life, 43 years. Yes, I've only been an attorney for 20 years, but I've been here my entire life, 43 years. So I truly believe that I represent this county. We have people on the west side of the community and the east side of the community. We need someone to represent Nassau County and county judge that truly represents the community, all walks of life. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. Ms. Carter, why do you, or is it Carver? Sorry. It says Carter on here. Ms. Carver, why do you think you are the best candidate to be elected Group 1 County Judge?
Well, I want to differentiate the role of a judge from the role of an attorney. An attorney's job is to go into court and try to convince the court or the jury or whoever it is that's making the decision that their side's the way to go. And of course, a judge that's not their role. Their role is to listen to all sides and to look at the evidence and the testimony and look at the laws that apply and come to a reasoned decision based on all of those things. So it's a very different role than it is to be an attorney in the courtroom. I've had that experience. I think I'm the only one here that has had that experience. And I also, my healthcare background has been tremendously helpful because over 70% of our criminal charges are drug related or mental health and drug related. So that has been a tremendous asset as well. So the two that come together have given me, and I know the resources that are available in the community. I know how to connect people. I've demonstrated the ability to manage my courtrooms, to manage the sometimes bad behavior in the courtrooms respectfully, and to let people know that, you know, I respect them and they need to respect the court as well. And people get emotional and they get stressed when they come to court. To be able to handle that kind of a situation is important and it's needed in a courtroom. But it's also to problem solve and to be able to manage your calendar, which so that the cases don't go on, and to also be fair to people and to let people know, and the parties and the attorneys involved, that you've listened, that you've been there to listen to all of the testimony, to listen to the evidence, and to make sure that they know that they're getting a fair shake. So I've demonstrated that ability, and I think because of those things, I have the experience, I have the dedication, I have the commitment, and I have the passion to do it as well. I can't think of a more interesting job, and I think it brings all of my expertise together to further serve the people of Nassau County.
Thank you, Ms. Carver. All right, Mr. Cascone, why do you think you are the best candidate?
Thank you. 75% of the county court caseload, give or take a few percent every year, is criminal in nature. 27 years I've been board certified in criminal trial by the state of Florida. Only 7% of lawyers in the state of Florida achieve board certification. I have reached the pinnacle of the profession in the field that this court will deal with on a daily basis. I've had over 200 jury trials in my career of all nature, criminal, civil. I've had non-jury trials, family, small claims, juvenile. I've done it all that's going to appear in front of this court. Nobody else has the vast experience I do. My board certification term is longer than any of their terms as members of the bar. I have dedicated myself to my profession and to this community for 30 years in this community, not somewhere else. I built a business here. I didn't work for someone else. I didn't go somewhere else. I did it here as part of this community. I represented people from here. I hired people from here. As I said earlier, I've sat on front porches and at kitchen tables talking to families. I have the endorsement of law enforcement, the Police Benevolent Association that represents the city of Fernandina Beach, the Fraternal Order of Police that represents state, federal, and local law enforcement officers. I have the endorsement of the North Florida Central Labor Council. Those are three diverse groups. Every one of them chose who they would endorse. It was me. It's because they tell people, no matter what, they know I'll be fair. Police officers that I have done battle with in courtroom for 30 years endorsed me. That's a recognition of my professionalism and my integrity. And that's why I'm the best person for this job.
Thank you, Mr. Cascone. Mr. Poole, why do you think that you are the best candidate to be elected as Group 1 County Judge?
Well, one thing to point out that although the criminal caseload is a large part of the county court, as I mentioned before, it is growing in the civil side of it. Just January, the legislature doubled the jurisdiction of civil cases, meaning cases before that were $15,000 or less have now been doubled to $30,000. They're going to increase that further to $50,000 in 2022. On top of that, we have one county court judge. That's it. That's all we've been allotted. And I don't know if anyone's noticed, but we do have a growing population in Nassau County with no end in sight. You couple that growing caseload, that increased civil jurisdiction, it's more important than ever to have a well-rounded candidate, not someone who specializes in one area, but has handled all of those in the county courts. And I've done so in Nassau County for the past 11 years. Another challenge that one of us is going to have is the COVID-19 pandemic has effectively put this on hold. Right now in county court, I believe there are 90 cases set for jury trial into the criminal cases alone over the next 3 months. I don't think the ones are going next month, probably not the month after, and probably not till the end of the year, the way things have been postponed. So whoever inherits this is going to inherit a mess. And you need to have someone that has that diverse background, that's handled all of those cases, that's familiar with the criminal rules, the civil rules, the traffic rules, the small claims rules, all of the different ones that are going to come before them. And I have that experience. On top of that, I've shown my dedication to the community through giving back, through my service with organizations, through my pro bono activities, through all those other activities. And I'm committed to Nassau County. When I first filed, somebody asked me, do you see this as a stepping stone to another position, a circuit position or an appellate position? And I looked at him, I said, no, this is home. This has always been home. This is where I want to be. And if I were to take one of those positions, it would take me away from Nassau County. And that's not where I want to go. I want to be here. I want to serve my community. And I want to do so for the next 30 plus years and give some continuity and stability to the bench and make sure that every single person that walks through those courthouse doors is treated with respect and dignity, and that the laws are upheld fairly, impartial fashion. And so that's why I'm the right candidate for this position.
Thank you, Mr. Poole. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
As we wrap this up for the evening, we want to thank each of our candidates for attending tonight's Candidates Forum. I want to give a special thanks to our city clerk, Carolyn Best, for being here with us this evening. And we want each of you to know we know you're extremely busy. And we are honored that you have taken the time to spend with us this evening at this forum, to join us at this forum. And we wish each of you good luck, sincerely, for the remainder of your campaign. The primary election will be held on August 18th, 2020. And we want to remind the citizens of Nassau County, it is an open primary, meaning that it is open to all registered voters, regardless of party affiliation. Remember, voting is the most basic right in our democracy. Please mark your calendars for August 18th, 2020. Elections are important. Tonight's forum will be available to be viewed again on the city's local TV channel, Comcast, channel 264, hopefully by July 28th. We don't know the exact time when it will be broadcast, but please tell your friends and neighbors to watch it. And thank you once again for being with us. And this concludes our Judges Forum.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck. Thank you.